Sometimes football isn't just about the scoreboard. It's about the emotions boiling underneath, the unspoken energy that shapes the entire game. One small gesture, a celebration, a stare, a fist pump can carry more weight than the touchdown itself. It's in those little moments where the true story begins to unfold. The NFL is built on touchdowns, tackles, and trophies, sure, but it's also built on personalities, rivalries, and cultural conversations that spill outside the stadium walls. And right now, one of the greatest players in football history, Tom Brady, has ignited one of those conversations. A conversation that goes beyond points and playbooks. A conversation about how quarterbacks should celebrate, and more importantly, what those celebrations say about the game and about us. I've always been the type of person who pays attention to the details others miss. When a quarterback fires a laser into the end zone for 6, most people's eyes stay glued to the ball or the receiver. Mine? They go straight to the quarterback. Who does he run to? What's the first move he makes? Because that moment right there tells me everything about who he is. Some quarterbacks immediately sprint to their offensive linemen, the unsung heroes who just fought like warriors to give him that extra second. Others run down the field to find their teammates, pulling everyone together into a shared moment of triumph. And then there are those who turn the spotlight onto themselves, firing imaginary pistols, pointing skyward, pounding their chest. Flashy, showy, self-promotional. And that's the dividing line. Are you celebrating for the team? Or are you celebrating for yourself? Now, to be clear, football has always had celebrations. It's part of the DNA of the game. From the earliest days, players have been spiking the ball, dancing, and letting that adrenaline pour out. But recently, Tom Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play the sport, threw gasoline on this topic and set it ablaze. And when Tom Brady talks, the world listens. This isn't just any player. This is the man with 7 Super Bowl rings, countless records, and a reputation as the ultimate competitor. His voice doesn't echo, it thunders. And this time, what he said left people stunned. Brady didn't just comment, he condemned. He flat out called today's touchdown celebrations rubbish. He said they were unnecessary, even harmful to the game. And he didn't leave it vague. He pulled from his own experience to set the example. Brady said that when he was the quarterback, his instinct wasn't to mug for the cameras. He didn't waste energy on solo dances or hand gestures. Instead, he went straight to his linemen, straight to his teammates. He celebrated with the guys who made the play possible. To him, that was what winning was all about, building a sense of unity, intimidating the other team, not with individual antics, but with collective strength. On the surface, it sounded noble. Team first, selfless. The exact values coaches preach from youth football all the way to the NFL. But the way Brady delivered it, the sharp edge in his tone, the absolute certainty in his words, made it clear this wasn't just about him praising his style. It was about tearing down others. Because Brady didn't stop at holding up his own approach as the gold standard. He crossed the line into criticism. He mocked the so-called showboating, the 6 shooter guns, the finger-pointing, the choreographed moves. He labeled it selfish, pointless, and bad for the game. And whether he said their names directly or not, everybody knew who his words were aimed at. He was targeting the new wave of quarterbacks. Guys like Deshaun Watson. Guys like Shedeur Sanders. Quarterbacks who don't just score, but who ignite the stadium with fire and charisma. Quarterbacks who wear their confidence on their sleeve and refuse to dim their personality. Brady's message was clear. Those celebrations weren't about winning. They were about branding, ego, personal glory. He even went so far as to say that celebrating as a team was more intimidating than watching a quarterback act out a solo performance. To him, pointing to the crowd or firing imaginary guns wasn't strength. It was weakness masquerading as swagger. And that's when things really got heated. Because when you start calling out players like Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, when you paint their fire and individuality as flaws, you're not just critiquing football, you're stepping into something much deeper. Because this isn't just about football. This is about race. This is about the long, ugly history of how black athletes have been treated differently in America. It's about who gets permission to celebrate and who doesn't. Let's be real, this isn't new. Black athletes have always been held to a different standard. Their confidence has been called arrogance. Their flair has been called selfishness. Their individuality has been labeled as a problem. Meanwhile, their white counterparts displaying the exact same traits are celebrated as fiery leaders, as passionate competitors, as winners. Think about the history here. Colin Kaepernick kneeled during the national anthem to protest racial injustice, and he was vilified. Blackballed from the league. His career effectively destroyed. But when white players made political or social statements, the response wasn't nearly as venomous. Cam Newton. He danced, he dabbed, he celebrated with joy, and he was torn apart by critics for being too much. Contrast that with Aaron Rodgers, who's been praised countless times for his fire, his passion, his competitiveness, even when he commands a spotlight. The double standard couldn't be clearer. And now, Brady's comments reopen that wound. When he points at Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson, when he mocks their individuality, it's not just a football critique. It's a cultural one. It's part of that long-standing narrative that says black quarterbacks must carry themselves differently, act differently, even celebrate differently, or risk being labeled as selfish. Meanwhile, Brady, who celebrated in his own ways, is remembered as a leader, not a showman. Even beyond Sanders and Watson, the pattern stretches wide. Quarterbacks like Dylan Gabriel get caught in the storm of quarterback controversies, where media narratives spin differently depending on who you are and how you look. It's a cycle that repeats itself over and over. And the truth is, this isn't just about who spikes the ball or who pulls out a finger gun. It's about who gets to define what winning the right way really looks like. So what do we have here? On the surface, it looks like a debate about touchdown dances. But beneath it, this is a fight over culture, identity, and the soul of the game itself. Brady represents the old guard, the quiet, humble, team-first image that dominated football for decades. But the new generation, led by players like Shedeur Sanders, refuses to play by those outdated rules. They're unapologetic, they're bold, they're expressive, and they're not going to shrink themselves just to make the old guard comfortable. And that's why this matters so much. Because the NFL has always been more than just a sport. It's a mirror, a reflection of society. It shows us how far we've come and how far we still have to go. Brady might think he's protecting the purity of the game, but whether he realizes it or not, his words poured gasoline on a cultural fire that's been burning for decades. So let me ask you this, what's more dangerous to a defense? A quarterback who jogs quietly back to the sideline after a score, stone-faced and reserved? Or a quarterback who lights up the stadium, rallies his teammates, ignites his fans, and plays with an unapologetic energy that refuses to be contained? Tom Brady may have sparked this debate, but it's the new generation that's carrying it forward. And make no mistake, this isn't just about football anymore. This is about who gets to write the story of the game moving into the future. Will it be the old guard, clinging to tradition, demanding humility and silence? Or will it be the new wave, unapologetic and authentic, rewriting the rules and celebrating on their own terms? And if you ask me, that battle is just getting started. When I first heard Tom Brady's comments, I'll be honest with you, I froze. Not because I didn't expect Brady to speak his mind, he's always been outspoken in his own way, but because of the weight those words carried. At face value, he was talking about touchdown celebrations, about quarterbacks who show emotion after a big play, who dance, who shout, who throw their arms around teammates in unfiltered joy. But underneath, it struck me as something deeper, something heavier. What Brady said, whether he meant it or not, touched on an issue that has lived in the NFL for decades, the way black athletes are constantly told how they should act, how they should express themselves, and how much of their personality they're allowed to show on the field. And that's not just about football. That's about identity. That's about freedom. That's about race. Think about the double standard here. When a black quarterback like Shedeur Sanders flashes his personality after dropping a dime into the end zone, or when Deshaun Watson celebrates a touchdown with energy and flair, the reactions aren't just about the play itself. They become debates. Suddenly it's, is he showboating, or is he making it about himself? You've heard the whispers, and you've seen the criticism. But when quarterbacks of a different background did the same thing years ago, whether it was a fist pump, a chest beat, or some other raw celebration, it was often described as passion, competitiveness, or fire. The contrast is striking, and it's impossible to ignore. So when Brady, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, the gold standard of leadership, steps into this conversation, his words don't just echo, they slam down like a hammer. He might have thought he was just defending old-school values, pushing for a team-first mentality, but that's not what people heard. What people heard was dismissiveness. What people heard was judgment. And for many, it came across as racially charged. That's why the backlash wasn't just casual pushback, it was fierce, it was emotional, and it came from all sides. Fans, analysts, former players, even athletes in other sports, they all had something to say. Because when Tom Brady speaks, people listen. And this time, what they heard was not good. And here's the irony that makes this whole thing sting even more. Brady has always been celebrated as the ultimate team guy. The quarterback who would sprint down the field to celebrate with his offensive linemen. The leader who made everyone feel like they were part of the win. But in trying to defend that very idea, teamwork over individualism, he ended up isolating an entire wave of new players. His credibility didn't just take a small hit, it cracked wide open. Whether he realized it or not, he stumbled into the long and painful history of how black quarterbacks have been judged, criticized, and held to a different standard. This is where it goes beyond football. This isn't just about a dance in the end zone. This is about what those dances represent. It's about identity and authenticity. It's about whether players are allowed to show the full range of who they are without being boxed in by stereotypes. Because let's be clear, when you criticize the way a black quarterback celebrates, you're not just questioning style, you're questioning self-expression. You're saying in so many words, this part of you doesn't belong here. And that is why this hit such a nerve. Now Brady finds himself in a place he's not used to being, under fire, not for a play he made on the field, but for words he spoke off it. And here's the thing, intent doesn't erase impact. Maybe he didn't mean it as a racial critique, maybe he thought he was defending tradition. But the impact is what people feel, and the impact was harmful. Instead of being remembered as a simple opinion on touchdown celebrations, his remarks are now tied to a much bigger story about race, expression, and equality in sports. The NFL today isn't the same league it was 20 years ago. The culture has shifted. The league is more diverse, more vibrant, more expressive. Players like Shedeur represent that shift. They embody a new era where quarterbacks aren't just expected to be stoic generals, but can also be personalities, leaders who bring their full selves to the game. And that's not a weakness. That's a strength. That's what connects fans. That's what grows the sport. To push back against that, intentionally or not, is to push back against the future of the game itself. And that's why people are asking hard questions now. Did Brady simply show a blind spot? Or did he reveal a deeper belief that's out of step with where the league is heading? Will his comments fade away as just another controversy in the endless NFL news cycle? Or will they linger as a permanent blemish on his legacy? Because make no mistake, this does affect his legacy. Words matter. They shape how people see you. They can either contribute to growth, or they can reinforce old, harmful patterns. So here's where I stand. Tom Brady has every right to his opinion. But when you're the face of the league, when you've spent 2 decades being the role model for what a quarterback is supposed to be, your words come with weight. And this time, that weight came crashing down in the wrong direction. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Brady's comments were just a matter of personal opinion, or did they reveal something bigger about the way black quarterbacks are treated in the NFL? Should players like Shedeur and Deshaun Watson be held to a different standard when it comes to celebrating their success? Or should every athlete have the freedom to show joy however they see fit? Do you believe this controversy will fade away, or will it stick to Brady's legacy forever? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about football. It's about culture. It's about equality. And it's about whether the NFL is ready to truly embrace the individuality of every single player who steps onto that field.